The general assumption is that everyone knows what blood type O stands for. The donor of last resort, the safe, easy category that can save lives in an emergency. That was the story for decades. Hospitals stocked up on O-negative units for trauma patients. Textbooks explained it as the genetic tabula rasa of human blood, and regular people just regarded it as a dull medical truism. Then something changed. But over the last few years, computers have re-examined great repositories of medical and genetic information, searching through millions of hospital charts and genomic databases, and the tale of O has proved much stranger than anticipated. Unseen patterns, unexpected health connections, and evolutionary mysteries are redefining what scientists thought was established biology. What was once brushed off as a simple no-frills blood type is now turning out to be a window into human history, survival, and the future of medicine. If you only get a glimpse of how deep the story goes, you may never view blood quite the same way after that. When you hear blood type O, you're likely to think of either the fact that it's the universal donor, or that it's simply the most prevalent type. Neither is incorrect, but they're only scratching the surface. The true history of O blood is more interesting, more intriguing, and less dull than the simplistic explanation provided in high school biology class. Thanks to decades of laboratory research and now the computational power of AI combing through massive data sets, we know that O is full of oddities that don't quite fit the simple label it has carried for a century. At first glance, the basics seem straightforward enough. Human blood is grouped into 4 major categories under the ABO system: A, B, AB, and O. These groups are defined by tiny chemical markers known as antigens that reside on the surface of red blood cells. They are like identity tags or badges. Type A carries the A antigen, Type B carries the B antigen, Type AB carries both, and Type O carries neither. Its red blood cells are like blank faces in a room full of name-tagged people. That emptiness is exactly why O blood is so effective in medicine. Since it does not have A and B antigens, immune systems generally do not attack when O-type blood is given as a transfusion. That's how O gained its heroic status as the universal donor. In emergency rooms worldwide, when surgeons haven't a minute to match a patient's precise blood type, they turn to O-negative, the safest choice, the quiet lifesaver that has saved innumerable lives. But here's the twist. O blood isn't only a humanitarian all-star. Scientifically, it's an interesting anomaly of evolution. Researchers assume O blood developed when a gene involved in making A or B antigens lost some of its instructions thousands of years ago. So, in a way, O wasn't the first type, it was a mutation, a genetic rebel child. And yet, today, O is the most prevalent blood type on Earth. About 45% of individuals in the United States are type O, and in parts of South America, the rate is almost 100. Obviously, this so-called blank characteristic had evolutionary benefits. The tale gets even more interesting when you consider that O isn't the majority everywhere. In some areas of Asia, type B prevails. In some areas of India, type A takes the top spot. These distributional differences by region are not incidental, they're evolutionary traces. They provide us with hints about ancient migration patterns, survival pressures, and resistance to diseases. For example, where malaria once commonly afflicted areas, O blood had an enormous advantage. Individuals of type O had a lesser chance of getting severe, lethal malaria, providing them with a survival advantage that helped the trait reach a wide presence. So, empty as it looks, O contained the stamp of resilience. Nature, however, is not in the habit of giving out get-out-of-jail-free cards. Type O might lower the risk of some ailments such as blood clotting disorders and malaria, but it elevates the risk of others. Perhaps best known of these is susceptibility to stomach ulcers from Helicobacter pylori bacteria. For reasons still being researched, O carriers are more prone to this infection, which can inflame the lining of the stomach and cause agonizing ulcers. That seeming contradiction, protection in one location, weakness in another, is the signature of how evolution works. Every genetic feature is a compromise. What really shakes up the debate today, though, is the arrival of artificial intelligence. For decades, blood typing was tidy and neat. You were A, B, AB, or O. Positive or negative. Done. But AI has been combing through huge repositories of genetic code, medical results, and transfusion histories, discovering patterns that human scientists can't see. It turns out that even within so-called uniform O category, there are subtle variations. Subtypes with molecular variation that affects everything from risk of infection to transfusion compatibility. O blood is not a monolithic group anymore, it is a continuum, and the health and medical implications are staggering. Doctors treated blood typing as a matter of fact for decades. Your ABO letters plus the Rh factor determined your type and that was it. But AI has revealed that O blood is not monolithic at all. Picture that you were working with regular vanilla ice cream and then find out that there are dozens of flavors masquerading as just that. These O subgroups behave differently with diseases, the immune system, and even gut microbes. Consider malaria as an example. For decades we knew that O carriers were safer from deadly malaria. AI took it further to identify that some O variations offered even greater protection. Similarly, when analyzing records from cholera outbreaks, AI found that some O subtypes conferred relative resistance, while others heightened vulnerability to dehydration. On the flip side, diseases like norovirus, the dreaded stomach flu that sweeps through schools and cruise ships, appear to infect O carriers more severely, and again the severity depends on which O subgroup one belongs to. COVID-19 brought even more urgency to these discoveries. Early in the pandemic, small studies suggested that individuals with O blood were perhaps at a slightly reduced risk of severe illness versus A or AB. AI analysis of massive hospital databases, however, corroborated the trend and uncovered an essential subtlety: not all O groups benefited alike. Those underlying O subgroups controlled outcomes. In other words, the statement, O blood guards against COVID, is an exaggeration. Certain O subtypes did better than others, and only AI possessed the computational power to recognize such differences across millions of cases. Another surprising discovery has been the myth of the universal donor itself. Whereas O-negative is still the best bet in trauma, AI analysis of transfusion data identified subtle antigenic idiosyncrasies in O blood that, in rare cases, initiate immune responses. Physicians used to write off these as anomalies, but the worldwide perspective that AI has offered indicated that they are structured, associated with latent O subgroups. This turns the game around for blood banks, implying that the future can see even O-negative needing more precise matching to prevent complications. The gut microbiome also has emerged as an intriguing frontier. Initial AI-driven research indicates that O blood supports a somewhat different digestive tract microbial environment than A or B types. This could be the reason that O carriers have an increased risk of ulcers but lower risks of some metabolic diseases. The implications go far beyond trivia. They could redefine nutrition and medicine as genuinely personalized systems. Imagine a physician who not only inquires about your family history or allergies but also examines your very specific O subgroup before it comes to creating a diet plan, administering a drug, or suggesting a vaccine. That is the way precision medicine is going, and AI is the driving force behind it. The evolutionary history of O adds one more dimension. By all reason, O should have been scarce. It began as a mutation, a gap in the genetic blueprint for A or B antigens. Most mutations in evolutionary theory disappear or stay rare. But O blew up, prevailing among huge populations of people. Obviously, it had benefits. Resistance to malaria accounts for some of the success. Cholera can have another role. But scientists probe further and discover a rich fabric of trade-offs. For instance, O carriers did worse than carriers of other blood types from cholera's dehydration. In other epidemic situations, however, O carriers could have been superior survivors. Introduce random genetic drift and the phenomenon that small migratory groups can fix characters by chance, and you have a portrait of O as both happenstance and benefit. Geography makes the point vivid. Indigenous populations in South and Central America bear O blood nearly at complete frequencies. This is not due to O being the earliest blood type, but simply because the small groups migrating to the Americas thousands of years ago just so happened to have high percentages of O. Isolation over generations amplified it until O was practically universal in some areas. Parts of Asia still have more A and B balances, however. Population genetics models powered by machine learning now enable scientists to trace how epidemics, migration, and even war reconfigured blood type patterns across centuries. To this perspective, O is no longer a biological truth but an historical agent. It determined whether to live or die and whether to reproduce or not. O's health profile has historically provided fuel for myth and speculation. In Japan and Korea, personality is culturally associated with blood type. O types are stereotypically presumed to be assertive, outgoing leaders who are sometimes obstinate or quick-tempered. Though there is no scientific basis for this, it affects dating, employment, and social relationships. Data mining of personality questionnaires using artificial intelligence verifies what established psychology has asserted all along: no reliable correlation between blood type and character. The lasting appeal of these myths is less a product of biology than of cultural narrative. Likewise, the blood type diet, which asserts that O individuals must eat high-protein hunter-type fare, is mostly hooey. But AI has validated some subtle metabolic correlations between O blood and nutrient metabolism, far less intense than the gurus would have us believe, but sufficient to suggest that evolution sculpted our body in ways we are just now starting to realize. In medicine, O blood is still a hero. O negative, although uncommon, is indispensable in crises. O positive, the most prevalent subtype, is essential for routine hospital application. But once more, AI has proved the old categories to be clumsy instruments. Even O2O transfusions sometimes have problems due to underlying antigenic dissimilarities. AI can now detect those dissimilarities ahead of time, improving transfusion medicine. In organ transplants, O donors are precious since their organs can be directed to more recipients, but O recipients have the toughest challenge since they can only receive from O donors. AI is starting to optimize these matches and can potentially re-engineer donor organs someday to transcend such obstacles. To the future, the tale of O blood is a tale of potential. Artificial intelligence is transforming the old rigid four-letter system into a rich and complex map of classifications. Precision medicine will eventually put not only O positive in your doctor's chart but a full antigenic and genetic profile designed to forecast your risks, direct your treatments, and enhance your survival in epidemics. Pandemic readiness, diet, organ transplantation, and even prevention are all poised to be revolutionized by these findings. The empty badge of type O is proving to be far from empty. It is a shield, a survival instrument, and a nuanced indicator of human history. So the next time someone shrugs and says, "Oh, I'm just type O," you'll know better. There's no such thing as just O anymore. It is a genetic story written into the bloodstream of nearly half of humanity, one that AI is finally decoding in all its hidden complexity. And far from being a plain no-frills blood type, O may prove to be the richest and most fascinating of them all.